My name is Andy. I'm your operations manager here at the center. And you are?
I'm Ine.
And you are?
I'm a Ganapati.
And student of IKYA, right?
Oh, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and you are?
My name is Nora, and I'm a Ganapati host.
I'm Hegefrid, and I'm a IKYA therapist, and joining these courses.
And I'm Stenove. I'm a student at IKYA and a Ganapati as well.
Yeah. And we together want to warmly welcome you to tonight's open house with IKYA and also to the IKYA community. And that's why we're doing improv on stage right now, because we... Yes, Gudi?
What is a Ganapati?
We'll get into Ganapati later, but first we want to talk a little bit about what makes the community around studying with IKYA a little bit different than other communities you may have encountered. We were speaking earlier with IKYA today about that, and what's interesting about community is that, if you guys have noticed, we often feel a sense of belonging when we find a community that we're drawn to. But what defines a community typically is not so much what holds us together, but the definition of those who are not part of the community. It's that sort of exclusionary part, that we get to be a community because we exclude others that are different from us. So what's so fun and unique, and I would say challenging, about this community is that we do the opposite. We seek to include more. We seek to include each other, even though each of us is walking our own unique path in life.
Yep.
And that is what makes it a culture. That's what makes it a community that sticks together, that really want to explore how spiritual principles play out in life. And that can be rather fun.
And rather challenging, because often people will experience, when they first encounter IKYA, oh, it's a bunch of people doing their own thing, and they seem kind of like they're all over the place. But what it took a while for a lot of us to recognize is, even though we're each walking a unique path, we're all going in the same direction toward truth. Now, how that path winds and where it goes, that's unique to each of us. But at some point you realize, like, oh, that person who I thought was so different than me and doing things so differently is actually walking in the same direction as me. And thereby, we begin to sense that community, that sense of belonging. But that comes from including someone who's so different from me, and it looks like they're walking a path that I don't even recognize.
And even if we walk our individual path, we learn tools from IKYA that are kind of the universal tools, but we can use them in different manners to walk our way.
Yeah. Which is fun, because I just got this image of, imagine you're walking in a forest and you lose track of your friend, right? Well, if you started singing an IKYA mantra, you might then hear the same mantra in a different part of the forest, and you guys might wind your way to finding each other again, but still on each your own unique path.
Yeah. And sometimes how this also plays out practically is, we can be stuck in our own processes and encounter difficult things in life. And all of a sudden I talk with someone else here, and I find that they're actually solving or figuring out their very own solution to a very similar problem, yet in a completely different setting. And often that makes me feel like, okay, this is actually something we're working through together. I'm part of solving this from this angle, and you're going at it from that angle. And that makes me feel less alone in things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I discovered something that I think might be different in this community from other communities I've been experiencing. That it's not about belonging and being bekreftet, being confirmed. This is a journey for seeking truth. And that is really peeling off to get more close to who you are, and that you wish that for everyone. So it's not that you are clinging to each other, that you like each other and be confirmed, oh, this is so cozy place to be, is we actually helping each other to grow.
And some of the most fun moments are the most uncomfortable, when somebody says, hey, I noticed you're banging your head against that tree right there. Now, to you, it may feel like you're doing something really productive, but I can observe that maybe it's not that productive. And it can be really confrontational to be caught in that, like, what do you mean? I mean, I was just doing this thing over and over again. It was really entertaining, you know? And yet that's where, like, that's the golden moment where, as community, we lift each other, we wake each other up even more.
This is why we have a system called tuning buddies, where we want to tune each other. We're not accountable for anyone, but we want to tune. We want to be that buddy who really says, hey, you're banging your head again, you know? Instead of just, oh, poor you. Because it's a system where it's so natural to support in suffering, and we want to assist in growth. We want to assist. Not everyone has success all the time, but it's successful to not be in suffering all the time. We celebrate those success moments together. That makes the community difference. We really want to see growth in everyone taking part in the spiritual path.
If you know IKYA at all, you've probably heard him say something like, you can't follow me, I don't allow it, I'll kick you out, something like that. What we discovered we were talking today is one thing that makes this community really unusual is that we also can't follow each other. Right? I mean, that's the thing, is like in a community you want to feel like, oh, we're all the same, we can do it the same, I can lean on you, you lean on me, and it's like, oh, actually no, we can lean on each other to question each other, to challenge each other, to lift and support, but not to copy. We can't copy each other. It doesn't work. So it's a really, again, a unique part of being part of this community.
And we never do things alone. As soon as we team up in pairs or in groups. So we really want to explore the diversity by being more on our projects and summer events. Whatever we create more than one single point of awareness.
Yeah. And that's where, did you want to say something? No. But that's where, to your point, Guri, that's where the Ganapati study program comes in. IKYA helped us to develop it 2 years ago now, and we are basically, we five are Ganapati, that is Sanskrit for basically team leader. But all it is that there are students in the community who have stood up and said, I'm willing to try my best to lead and facilitate and be part of your study and supporting you. And so what we do is that we have these study groups that meet either, so it will be in between the first and second teachings in the Crystal course.
Once a month we meet to deepen our studies, because it's quite massive. All the information you get from IKYA and the consciousness and all the things it hits in us. As soon as we walk out from the teaching, we start digesting, we start working with this in our lives. And then we come together once a month online, and we meet in groups, and we share how is this playing out. We share the connectedness, and we also share the joy of exploring what it looks like. And that happens once a month. And then we have the joy of making study journals, where everyone is invited to create them with us. So we're creating in groups of 4. A study journal that we can monitor our growth throughout the month by asking the same questions over a month and seeing how you relate to it. So it's like a diary, isn't it?
It's kind of like a journal that you're taking notes in.
And you made it.
We have made it,
And we have
and it is a very good tool to use in the month when you get the new crystal to kind of get some help with which are the basic principles that we study. And you get questions that you can go through, maybe not every day, but in between, and check out for yourself, and you can discuss between yourself, because in the Ganapati groups, in addition to these monthly meetings, there is also possibility for continuous dialogue in chat groups. So if you have something you want to share, if you have a question, something you want to discuss, just go online in the chat group, and those who feel for it will feedback.
So together up here, we also wanted to touch on a couple of the practical details of the course, so that you have that as a framework for IKYA's teaching tonight. So it's a reminder that it's a 1-year study with IKYA in IKYA Crystal 6. This year there will be 11 stones, and with each stone come 2 teachings. You have the first primary teaching, and then the second teaching that also includes question and answer with IKYA at the end of that. In between those 2 teachings is when we have an online Ganapati study group gathering, and we're evolving to a fun format this year where everybody's online and we all get together in one big meeting and then we quickly break into breakout rooms or smaller study groups that will be different from time to time. So you get to know different students, you get different perspectives, you get challenged in different ways.
And we get the dynamic of not planning too much, because everything was planned is fixed to a moment. So we want all the Ganapati, the pool of Ganapati is over 20 students. So the pool of Ganapati will really dive in and do their best to facilitate those meetings with you.
Yeah, and one of the things that really fascinates me is that there are IKYA students all over the world. Because of all the online stuff, it's a possibility to join wherever you live. And you get kind of a bit spectacular input from people who are in different cultures. Really fascinating.
It was a fun coincidence that, and I say coincidence, but we had set up this course and had launched basically the week before, or it was 2 weeks before Corona broke out. And so we had everything set up to do online courses. So when Corona broke out, we just like, okay, everybody's online, no problem. And just went on as if nothing had happened. And very nice timing. But yes, so you can come physically here to the center, as some of you are doing tonight, and others of you online. We do it with Zoom, wherever you are in the world. And then we post, of course, all of the teachings on our online course platform, so you can listen to the teachings as often as you want. And then we do have a Facebook group so that we can exchange with each other there. And we've developed some WhatsApp groups, some Facebook Messenger groups, so that you have more interaction with your fellow students. And then I think that was the last thing. Oh no, and then the other tool that you have is the Ganapati gathering and the study journals. So we've created a whole web of tools for you to use to work, in addition, of course, to the beautiful crystal, which I'll bring out later. I realize I should have them in my lap so you could see them.
I just wanted to add something about the tuning buddy, because of choice, but if you choose to become part of the Ganapati program, or even if you choose to stay without, we will pair you up with a tuning buddy. So if you don't know anyone in the course, you will also have the opportunity to know someone and be paired up so that you have a sparring partner to work with during the studies. So you will never need to be alone. You will always have someone to ask. You will always have someone to share challenges, victories, whatever occurs in your life, perspectives. So we've received quite some feedback on that, like people really appreciating that support. And you might also get a tuning buddy across the world.
And we arrange events throughout the year. We have a summer party every year, which is a co-creational exploration and celebration feast. It's wonderful. And we also arrange satellite events. Whenever we have a spa day or something going on here, we arrange satellites for you onliners to meet somewhere else in the world as well. So it's not like Oslo is the only place you have to be. But for the summer party, it's already in the next year calendar, so you can book your flights. And that's kind of taking off the last year.
Yeah, good. I think we're going to let IKYA step up, but before we do that, I just want to highlight that what you're seeing in front of you is actually a really good example of what it is to study with IKYA. Because not to toot my own horn, but I'm the only one who's regularly in front of the camera and feels fairly comfortable in front of the camera. You're, I would say, secondarily pretty comfortable with it, but these three, for example, these lovely people are not so practiced in front of a camera, and here they are, stepping up, and pretty last minute we decided to do this. And I think it's just important to kind of recognize, you probably see it in us, our uncertainty, nothing is super perfect in what we just presented tonight. And yet, this is authentic, this is genuine, this is us being us with you guys.
And it is to say yes to life.
It is, opportunities show up in lots of weird. The more we say yes, the more we grow.
What I want to recognize also is the temple state that we seek in each other, and also when we come in here. We have all been to temples, but this time it's also this finding a sacred place where we really can rest and listen with our hearts. When we tune in to what IKYA is sharing and what our other fellow students are also sharing, we really want to connect from a deeper level than the superficial just listening with one ear. So that's also quite unique to our community, that we actually are very present with each other. That's the aim for sure, yeah?
Yeah, and in ourselves, and to, you know, to basically prove that you don't have to be in a particular type of building or a particular space in order to create that temple space in yourself. Here we are in an office building on Skøyen, and yet we can create a very sacred temple space in ourselves and together as a group. Yeah.
Warm welcome to you all, onliners and physically here. Let's get ready.
Yes, so
Thank
we're just
you.
going to
Thank you.
do a
Thank
quick changeroo here, and then IKYA will join us.
Welcome everyone to this open house. Let's start by talking about something that I find interesting. It's often in spiritual work. There is this story that if you want to have a successful life, a productive life, you know, and be that type of person, you have to be dead inside. You're just full of illusion. There's nothing going on. And that's what it takes to be successful in life. And if you want to be spiritual successful, if you want to have a rich inner life, then your outer life should be unproductive and dead. You have to choose. So, throughout history, humans have left their lives in order to seek spiritual truth. And if they've been seeking a productive life and success, they have disconnected from the inner reality. And the reason is because people are not able to negotiate the two. One experience that the outer life and the inner reality are so different that you have to choose between them. In true spiritual work, the starting point is that life is one. It's oneness. It means that the inner and the outer reality is the same. And if you are not able to make them work together, and for you to have an experience of them being the same, well, that means that you live in illusion. And it means that the inner worlds that you are experiencing, while feeling you're having to leave your life to find truth, is not truth. And it's the same when you seek a productive life and you feel you then have to disconnect from whatever is within. It means that is also not true. It is only when you're able to see the face of God, both with your eyes closed and your eyes open, that you're on a true spiritual path. And humans have, for the most part, not been able to do this. They've moved in one direction or the other. In this work, you figure out how to do both. How to combine the inner and the outer reality so it's one. One reality, one path, one you, one experience, one truth. And it's going back and forth. You can use the inner reality for certain things, and you can use the outer reality for certain things. Because when you have two different formats, you can kind of like go back and forth and find the outer version of what's inside and the inner version of what's outside of you. And you can tune and you can figure out where am I in this, because you will be shown different things. And it's only when it's one that it's true. So, yes, you can be a dedicated spiritual student and also be a billionaire. Be very successful, be productive, take part in life, make the world a better change and change and create and, be a good human being and be a productive one and also fit in. If you don't fit in here, you're not fitting in on the inner either. It's the same, and it's you. So, when we learn how to achieve true harmony and balance, you will fit in everywhere because life is one. This harmony is not in life, it's in you. Illusion is not in life, it's in you. And this is also why some people ask, when they come from traditional work, they say, well, the outer world is just illusion, so I should just meditate. No. The outer world is not illusion, objectively. It's how you perceive it. It's how you see it, how you experience the outer world. That is where the illusion is created. And when that is happening with your eyes open, what the fuck do you think happens with your eyes closed? In the outer world, you will be corrected. Life will show you when you're out of tune. Sometimes it will be brutal. Right? Because here you're dealing with other people, you're dealing with other manifestations. And, sometimes life will be very clear when you are out of tune. And you will meet manifestations representing that. And it's the same in the inner, but it's harder to notice. Because where is the correction? You can choose to not be corrected. You can choose what you experience. And it's so much easier to dwell in a subjective story of confirmation and bias and belief. In the outer world, you can believe this or that, but the world does not care, which is why we need it. Two different formats. In the inner, you can explore the essence of you in your kind of space, in your understanding, in your connection with the divine. But it's in the outer world that you can practice. Does this really work? Did I understand it correctly? Because life will show you. In the inner worlds, not so much. So, if you think the outer world is illusion, your inner worlds will be too, because you are the observer. You are the one experiencing. Right? Objective reality is not the same as what you are experiencing. So, in spiritual work, in true spiritual traditions, we always focus on how can we become the vehicle? How can we become someone that can actually be in the presence of truth, be in the presence of reality, instead of our own illusion. And for that, we need to become aware of every illusion. We need to listen to life, understand what life is showing us, and then we have to do something about it. And this is the wonderful thing about the outer world. It's very detailed. Your inner world is more, selective. You are exposed to millions of pieces of information each moment in the outer. Inner world is mostly what you focus on. So you need both. And in this tradition, we focus on how to work with the whole thing, which means you can live a fulfilled, productive life. You can be a successful person. You can be everything you want to be as a person and really blossom in your life. Have wonderful relationships. Have the life you've always wanted. Be creative. Have fun. Be everything you can possibly be. And also on the inner, be spiritually fulfilled and move closer to truth and understand how you are doing it. So you become competent in both directions at the same time. And then you begin to see the face of truth, also in the outer world and the inner world, and you realize it's the same. And you're beginning to see that with your eyes open, you're seeing the same as you do with your eyes closed. And it's wonderful and it's fun. So what we do in this tradition is to teach you how to do it. And everything is about your awakening. This is why in this tradition you cannot follow, you cannot submit, you cannot idolize, and it also means the relationship with me has to be that of sports coach. I can assist you in getting better technique, but you're the athlete. I can help you win, but you have to do the running, right? You have to do everything. But when you are spiritual ambitious, I can assist you in getting better results. Show you okay, you need to improve there. It's not as important. If you just want to walk in the park, like an Olympic coach coming out, I think you should place your feet a little bit like that, and really place your body like that, better weight, just distribution. It doesn't matter. It only matters if you want to win, right? If you are serious about your spiritual work, if you are like a professional athlete, or if you want to become one. Then you understand that you also need a coach, because a coach will see things that you don't. And it's all about this collaboration, about developing better practices, techniques, so that you can get the most out of your own efforts and your own studies. And this is basically how you can relate to me. So in this community, it's all about you. Not your ego, not the self, but the process of awakening and how to get really good at it. And I also have to recognize what works, what doesn't work. What is it that we can do in ourselves, our outer life, our inner life, and can learn the principles and learn to observe and understand so we can all become autonomous with integrity, and we can understand our own true path, our own true awakening. In traditions, the focus is on the practices and also sharing best practices. A tradition is basically whatever works as long as we get there. So it's for everyone to share whenever you figure something out that works for you. That may be something that other people can use. Right? I will teach principles and basically the physics of how things work, and then it's for all of you to experiment and figure out how do we deal with this? How do we get results? How do we get to higher consciousness and insights, and try to really work with it and then you share with each other. And this is basically what a tradition is and how it's different from a spiritual path just built around a teacher or a religion, whatever it is. It's really focused on how do we do this for real? How do we get results that are measurable in the real world? So this is what we do here. And it's a lot more fun. But it also assists you in becoming free and competent and strong, walking your own spiritual path your own way. But we can still be there for each other and nurture each other and, love and learn. Which means that in this community, you will experience a lot of other people's bullshit. If people want to work with their karma, it's real, right? Often what we see, and the great thing in this work is that most people who come here, they have lifetimes of experience from different paths, different approaches, been in temples and monasteries and whatnot, and some also in this lifetime. They've been in many different types of spiritual work, so there's a lot of experience about what doesn't work, and also what does. So it's this kind of dedication to that. And it means like the experience, and often what we're talking about is that where people have been before coming into this work is that it always ended up with power games and big egos and this or that, because the starting point is often that, yeah, you really should be like this. This is the sign of being a spiritual individual. And because everyone feels, I'm not good enough, I'm just faking it, then you begin to fake. And then you're afraid that anyone should notice that you're not doing it right. So then you have to protect yourself by trying to point out in others, they're not good enough either, and then it begins. And it happens all over. What we're doing is to include the reality of the human journey for real. Like, for real. So it means like your exact point of evolution, that's where you start. And that's okay. That will be supported and nurtured and loved, no matter what it is. Because it's the only way you can work with it. You can't work like with yourself and heal when at the same time judging yourself or being afraid or hating yourself. And saying this really should not be part of it, so I'll just suppress it. We include the human journey and being human and human nature, but then we expect you to work, to not indulge, so that let everything come to the surface, and then you will be taught what to do with it. And then you practice, and then you heal, and then you grow for real, and you get results. So it means that in this community, you will find all sorts of consciousness at the same time, depending on where everyone is in their personal process. And as you know, you can feel in one moment that, ooh, I'm so spiritual, I'm really a high consciousness, I've really understood what it's all about. Now, the next moment, you're somewhere completely different, right? Because something happens. Because then a trigger point, a pain point has been activated. That's how it is. Consciousness is not constant. Evolution is, but not your level of consciousness. And you'll learn to be flexible and to not judge yourself for, oh, I'm in the basement today. There's no way out, it seems. Oh, well, I might as well study what's here. And then the next day you might be somewhere else, right? And we learn to love it. We learn to include it and be relaxed and flexible. Because, again, you can't grow spiritually and also fake it, right? So in this work, everyone tries to be as real and as true about everything as possible. And that level of honesty is something you will experience. It doesn't mean that everyone is always able to be there or show it, but it's something that everyone's working on. And the training is intense. I train you like an Olympic athlete. I expect of you to be spiritual ambitious, that truth is what you actually seek more than anything. Often when people come to me, they have this experience that there is something in them that wants to wake up. And it's beyond their own control. It's not like they feel, oh, spiritual, that's fun, let's take a course. It's often that they don't want to. But from the inside, there is something waking up. And sometimes one can feel a decision has been made. You will be doing this. This is your destiny. This is your awakening, and you will do this work. And what you feel about it is of no consequence. Often people can feel that, and that means that it's a spiritual gravitational pull. It's your higher consciousness deciding that it's time, and it means that you're ready. Sometimes people also come here because they actually want to, but that's fine. But you know, it's remarkable how many people come here and they say, I've tried not to. Because they know this is hard work. It's real work. And it takes a lot because breaking through the boundaries of the self, right? Going through transformations that will open you up to true awakening, it's real work. But as I often say, you know, it's the thing like, yeah, it's a lot of work, but compared to what? It's much more challenging to not work with yourself, right? When we're not in a process of spiritual healing, that's when we suffer. That's when life is just like one thing after the other. And it's confusing and painful and draining and depressing and everything else. And that's a lot of work just to kind of keep going. So when you take a small part of that energy and invest that in spiritual work, in your own awakening, your life will begin to harmonize. And although that is a lot of work, it's actually less than dealing with everything you experience from being out of balance and harmony. So no matter how much work it is, it's still less than the alternative. Now, in these studies, we work with crystals. And the reason why we work with crystals is, number one, because it's fun. It will give you a different lens. Like each month, you will get a different lens. Because each crystal will kind of vibrate a certain way and will mirror you and represent certain aspects of spiritual principles and information. And then you kind of study. So we, each month in the course, you will have, you know, one teaching and one workshop, and there's a lot of information. So it's wall to wall, right? But then having a crystal that vibrates the teachings will assist you in absorbing more. It's like having an extra organ. So it assists you in absorbing more faster. Because when you look at the amount of information you will be given each month, it's shocking. So you need to be prepared for that. And then when having a crystal that kind of vibrates a specific way, it will kind of assist you in absorbing, digesting, and understanding. So it then feels comfortable and not too much at all. And then it's also fun because when you work with a crystal and you work with the teaching, and you will see that it manifests in your life. Your life will change slightly each month because of this lens. And then the next month, it's a new lens, so you get a new angle, keeping it fresh, right? And it's also important because the mind loves to get stuck. which is basically religion. You figure out what is true, and then you just build from there, from the same place. So when we can change position each month, your mind does not get stuck. You don't get complacent. You don't get too attached to whatever you think you've understood. Because sometimes you will be presented after a few months with the same principle, but in a very different way. And then it's, oh, right, this is, now I get it. Until it happens again, and then you say, now I get it. But, that's the fun about real spiritual studies. It's not about you finding your place and staying there. It's about moving with life, being in that flow, and understanding how to be kind of present to an ever-changing universe, an ever kind of changing expression of truth. So it means that you get to experience yourself in your process and your own process of awakening through a different lens every month. And as also that, the added benefit of having an extra organ. So your whole kind of body will be bathed in that energy, in that vibration, constantly. And most students, now they're able to feel and sense when the next stone is coming. And of course, nobody knows what it is. Well, I know, of course. It would be weird if I didn't. But so when the new stone is coming, a lot of students are able to notice that their life is beginning to adjust to it. And they kind of notice the little details, because this is also happening when you work with your outer life as a spiritual practice. It's not something you want to run away from. You're running towards it. And you start to understand that, oh, this is how God communicates. This is the distance between me and the divine truth. And by interacting with it, I start to notice what life is trying to teach me. So with each new kind of month, you will notice that, just like in the theater, right? After the break, and you come back, and it's a new set. It's kind of like that. And many, they've noticed what's happening, and when they get the new crystal, right, that was it. Because they recognize the teachings from what is then beginning to land in their life. And it's fun, and it's interesting. And in these teachings, we emphasize the exploration and the experimentation and fun. Because you cannot figure out what life is by just sitting there, right? You have to move, you have to explore. And it's that attitude that we always have to transform. We always have to let go of all our attachments and follow where life leads us, both on the inner and the outer. It will make you more flexible. It will assist you in also finding the communication from life, and then play around with it. Because you will realize that it's a conversation. Life can show you something, and then you respond, and then life will show you something else, and then you respond to that. You will begin, this is one ongoing conversation. And then you have the inner part. So it will all work together. If any of you have any questions at any time, just raise your hand, and I'll do my best to answer. The thing is also, when it comes to even answers, it's not like truth is not available to you. It's that you do not have the capacity yet. If truth is the ocean and you are a cup, whatever you get into that cup will not be representative for the ocean, right? Because you can fill your cup with the ocean. Well, there are no whales here, right? There's no, seaweeds or fish or anything. So this is what it is. It's not that truth does not exist and is right in front of you, is that you do not have the necessary capacity. So I'll say, instead of seeking truth, you need to expand your capacity for it. And as that expands, you will already be filled. It's always the personal work. And it's not enough that you do it on the inner, you have to do it on the outer too, because it's the same thing. Microphone, yeah.
I'm finding it difficult to sort of bridge the gap, in a sense, of the seeking versus the finding, because the seeking itself implies you're not there.
Yes.
And life having, at a certain moment in time, forced me into surrender.
Yes.
And awakening.
Yes.
Into a place of oneness and of no questions, just knowing and being.
Yes.
And then remembering the things and remembering the epiphanies, but from a no longer a experience, but
Yes.
a memory.
Yes.
And then going on this search, when a part of me is like, you know better.
Yes.
Surrender.
Yes.
Stop searching.
Exactly.
So what are we even talking about?
Yes.
In a sense, and that's what I find challenging with
Yes. Right.
examples such as yourself.
Yes.
That is gathering people towards a search. When if in me, I just want to hear that voice of,
Yes.
you're already there.
Yes. Now, the point is that we are already there. There is only one reality, and we're in it. The challenge is that most individuals are not experiencing it that way. So the search is really not a search. The journey is not a journey. I will say that you will only be journeying until you realize that there was never a journey, right? But there are steps. And you have to relate to your exact point of evolution. And also remember that the concepts and thoughts and words in human languages are based on survival, not on spiritual awakening. So we have to use our words, and they will never be true. This is again why we have practices that will make you begin to experience truth from within, but within is also the outside at the same time, because it's still one. What is really happening is that we are all in what we may call God. That's also just a word. And the resistance is basically, our level of consciousness, our level of realization, and that will become this. So it's the filtering through consciousness and the resistance in consciousness that will then turn into this. And then it's understanding that through everything in every possible way, we figure out how to begin peeling, tuning, and this is why I said as we expand, our capacity will already filled. Because truth is there, we are truth, we are God. But the active experience is no, it's not that. So the seeking is both then in the outer, understanding that, you cannot sit in your sense of reality and how you live your life and your thoughts and beliefs and believe they should not change. So when we talk about flexibility and moving, it's also inside. Also the flexibility of letting go of attachments and experiment. What does that even mean? What does expansion even mean, right? And it's an inner-outer process at the same time, but in essence, it's simply the instrument being tuned. That's all. And as you have deeper experiences, it becomes more a process of surrender. But what you are in and what you're experiencing of the surrender is still limited by your consciousness. So it's not that that is not the final goal. That's just the beginning. experiencing everything as the same, is still just the beginning. It's the first baby step. And then the true awakening begins. But that is also, from that point, the biggest part of it. As I say, the biggest part of the journey of the plant, from the perspective of the seed, it's planted, then it opens. That's it. No more seed. But for the tree, it's the beginning. But it requires the transformation from seed to a plant, being in reality, and then beginning to grow. And it's that process. But it's how to get to that point where the shell of the self begins to crack. And until that happens, you're trying to find the right place to plant yourself. There is a reason why in these worlds we journey, why we do things, why we try to figure out why we do everything we do, because it's spiritually productive until it's not. It's all about figuring out, how do we do this? And yet, once we begin the true process of awakening, we completely reinvent how we see the world and what it is for. So we do not leave it behind, we embrace it. But what we may call the journey is no longer a journey, and yet it is. Words are kind of, but this is also important in this work, is that the focus is on this process, and then there are practices, information, everything, and then it's up to each individual to try to figure it out. And all processes and kind of information, that is real important. I will never talk about it. I will only show. So it means the relationship is that I will be there in the process of each student, in the process of awakening, because first, you need to have an inner understanding that goes far beyond words. It cannot be expressed, but I can then assist you, say, yeah, but still, a little bit more in that direction. And it's that. The process of awakening is, as you know, very different from human life, and yet it is what human life is about. So this constant also reinvention of one's relationship with the outer world is also a sign that, yeah, you're able to integrate. Right? Because we begin as beings and as humans, we begin living from the outside in, which means we understand all our definitions, how we see ourselves. It's all based on the outer world. But then at some point, when we begin to wake up on the inside, we realize, oh, it's the opposite. And then you begin to see that, oh, right, it's basically the inner reality, and then I can use that. I can use the outer world to test, have I understood it? And then it will understand the outer world as the clarity of the universe. And it will show you when you get it and when you don't. So the inner expansion will continue, and then the outer rendering, once you then begin to project and try to live from those realizations, life will then reflect immediately what you need to tune. So words in human languages are simply not what they need to be in order to put words to things. So I always say, like, don't listen to my words. Listen beyond. And understand that your awakening is yours, and the rest is basically how we can work with that and how to get deeper insight. This is also why, when students come to teaching, they may hear very different things based on their consciousness. So how they relate to even the words I speak will be based on where they are. As I say, the world is not illusion. How we perceive it is illusion. So how they filter and what they are able to take in, and how that can change their own connectedness and their own awakening, that depends on their point of evolution. But we start by realizing that in this world it is a journey until it's not. And then it's still a journey, but a different one. And to not let the mind define too much, and just, well, words are just words. It's like, it is what it is. And when we get there, we all understand what we're talking about. And we still can use words, right? But it's like we understand them differently. It's the same with the concept of God, right? Each year, hopefully, you see it as something else, right? And through your spiritual studies and your expansion in this life, it will be reinvented many times because you are not in the same place anymore. The term God is just a word, but it's what it means to you as a symbol of something, right? You may start out with a more kind of religious understanding, and then you move away from that. And it's just then a concept of isness, and then it becomes something else, and this or that, and it doesn't matter. It's in that general direction, and whatever we think we understand, whatever we think we realized, it will change forever. You will never get to the point where I get it now, because that exact moment the universe will have changed yet again. So, in higher consciousness, it's not like we have learned. It's simply that we love learning very fast. It's the ability to adapt to the expression of the divine without resistance, which means it's happening everywhere, all over, at once and immediately. So you never get to the point, I understand it now. Now my consciousness is this, because yes, in that moment. And then you have to do it again next moment. So, as I always say, balance is not being in balance. It's the ability to regain balance from whatever angle and whatever reality, whatever hits you, wherever you are. That is balance. So a higher consciousness is the same. It's the ability to reach higher consciousness again in the next moment, in the next moment, in the next moment. And the more experience you have, the more you have also experimented and been tested, it happens so quickly that it's just, boop, it feels like you're just there, but you have regained it. And for many of you, it's like when it comes to spiritual practice, for example, meditation, when you begin your first steps in meditation, it may take you hours to really go into meditation because there's so much noise, right? There is so much stuff in your mind you need to work your way through. And if you've been to a meditation retreat, you say, oh, third day, right? Third day of meditation, then, right? When you've practiced for years, what would take you 3 days will take you about 5 seconds. Right? And many of you know it. You can sit down and you kind of know it. And it's like in your mind, in you, you've learned, oh, it begins like a little bit of that, and then focus on that, and then I feel that thing, and this, you have no words for it. But can you know how to move and the different steps you need to go through, and then you can do them all at once. And this is what we're talking about. Nothing is permanent. But you get better at finding that point of balance, no matter what. Because you always have to relate to the expression of the universe, because that is also how the divine expresses itself, how it creates. And every time you learn something, every time you do something that has never been done before by you, the universe will have to change. Because if you think of it as a mathematical equation, when there is something that has not been before, or in a variation that has not existed before. Like, it will all have to change. This is why everything changes continuously. So when you have like found your point of balance, yeah, in your subjectiveness, that may be permanent, but not in the universe. So we learn to always adapt. But we get better and better, so it happens instantaneously. But back to your question, as you continue to expand, as all of you continue to expand, your definitions and words and understandings and concepts and models will be reinvented millions of times. So it's not about like finding the right way to express something. It's basically seeing everything as models and stepping stones and, you know, things we can hold on to. And then we move past it, and then it's something else. So, and that's also part of the fun. And I always, in this work, try to inspire people to listen to everyone. You know, we can listen to different teachers, different, whatever it is. I also advise people to, you know, be engaged in science and use different sources to try to understand more, and also how you can use that understanding to get to a more kind of truthful place in you, or whatever you want to call it. Because if it works, it works. And if it works now, it doesn't mean that it will work tomorrow. So it's important that we don't take it too seriously. Right? That we don't, I have to find what's true and right. Nah, you know. It's the process. It's the fun of experimenting and trying to figure things out, and learning also to be able to track and kind of trace your true expansion, your true spiritual evolution, be able to observe it for real, not based on belief, not based on how you feel, not based on sensation, but that you're able to observe it. And then you know more, what actually did I do or be, or whatever we want to call it, that made this happen. And you can observe it and you can understand. And then you kind of build your toolbox based on how your path is, your uniqueness, what is awakening in you. Not based on how things should be or to have the right beliefs or anything like that. It's basically just like learning how you, as, you know, a flower that is unique. There's only one of that flower in the universe, and you have to make it blossom. And because there's only one, there is no instruction manual. So you just have to, like, you know, figure out what kind of soil, nutrition, amount of sun, temperature, water, all of that. And that we have to, like, figure out, and it will also change based on your different kind of steps of consciousness. And it's also fun to recognize that, yeah, we're not the same. We're not all the same plant or flower. We're very different. And we're also in different stages of development, which is why we can learn from each other and also not. We can learn but not copy. Right? So it's in this work, it's about being open and test things out, and whatever works for you works for you. What make all of you gravitate towards this work is that your dedication to spiritual awakening and truth is greater than your dedication to anything else. And at some point, you know, that takes over, as you've experienced, and most students in this work, that's what they experience, that it takes over, and that begins to show itself. And we just have to surrender more, because surrender is not something you do once. It's not a permanent thing. You have to do it again. And becomes more advanced, more complex, and yet simpler, you know. But it's that whole process of learning, how do we do this for real? So, all fun stuff. Now, any more questions?
See, we have a question online. How do you choose which crystals and in what order we receive them? And can you say anything about the theme for the next cycle?
Okay, now, how do you choose? Like, We are choosing them based on where the collective consciousness of the students, like where they are. So think of it as a spiral. And the thing is always to assist in upwards and forwards and whatever we want. And so it's this continuous movement. And then we'd basically just look at, well, where are you guys at? And what are the next kind of steps? So think of it as a kind of spiral staircase. So it's basically that. And in this tradition, there are a lot of beings. And the ones also working with different stones and different kind of sets of vibration. We work together, and sometimes they're very clear that, oh, this here and this there. And then we just work on a sequence. So it's basically just like a staircase. It has to make sense. So each kind of like stone represents a step further. And it will be kind of a kind of healthy movement that everyone can not follow, but actively walk. So there's a logic and a kind of also, in a way, continuous, I wouldn't say storytelling, but there is a kind of sequencing of information, right? So you can build on the last one and the next ones. So it's really just that. And that is the purpose of them. And also what we do, of course, if you compare these teachings and the information to what you find in crystal books or whatever, you will see the traces. That, yeah, you can see that there's a little bit of that, but we work on a very different level. So it's mostly using the crystals as kind of an amplifier for a certain spectrum of vibration and consciousness, then manifested into teachings and information, so that you kind of also understand what are these vibrations, what is this kind of spectrum that is now being kind of channeled into me. So you also become more literate in understanding energy and vibrational information. And then there will be beings also taking part in the inner work and to assist you in really trying to integrate this. And then you grow extremely fast. Right? This is really fast tracking your spiritual growth beyond what you think is possible, as long as you do the work. But you get a lot of help and support, and you get irreversible results, which is important because then it's evolution. Right? It's not belief, it's you can see, you can sense, you can experience that you transform. You expand, your insights are real, and they're coming from you. Because that's the only way. You are, a being of truth. Your life doesn't show it yet. Sometimes it does, but for the most part. And it's realizing, oh, right, so the only way is to work through you. You as a channel, you as uniqueness. And for truth then to begin to manifest and expand through you. Right? So it's not clinging on to what I'm teaching. It's using that to unlock whatever is inside of you. And then discover that. And then share it. Right? So this is why it's so important to have an openness. And why everyone has to be dedicated to their own awakening in their own path, and whatever we want to call it. And to not submit, to leave behind belief systems and religiousness and all of that. And many people come to this work believing, yeah, I'm done with all of it. And after 6 months, they look like they're in a cult because it's in them. And they just need to then work that out and, most people are able to then have a sense of humor about it, right? What you learn in this work is to not take yourself too seriously because you can't. There's too much karma. It's too much blowing up in your face, right? and in each other's faces, and because we are here for each other, meaning that when you go through stuff, everybody's watching and both supporting you and laughing at the same time. And just like trying to be lighthearted, because no matter what you go through, there will be tons of people who say, been there, done that. It's like, so it's learning to not take things too seriously, including your own, suffering, but working things out. And to then be inspired to let go of whatever stands between you and truth and peel away whatever you are not. So you may be what and who you are also as a human. Because this is also back to what often happens in spiritual work. We can have all this like inner things, but then on the outside, you may still be an asshole. Right? That is quite common. I've met so many like spiritual teachers in different traditions, and they're supposed to be enlightened, and they're just like, when they're in meditation, they're wonderful. But not when, because they haven't really focused on that. And this is why we also emphasize it has to be one whole existence, which is why it's important also to practice with each other our tolerance, our compassion and love for other people's karma and their stuff. Because as we know, everyone else is annoying. Right? And we learn that, no, they're not. We're all in this together. We're all trying to figure out kind of what we truly are, what truth is, and what the relationship is between those two. And unless we can meet someone in their karma and love them wholeheartedly and support them and nurture and just figure out how can I assist in this process, you're not quite there yet, right? But also then assisting each other in that growth process, right? That is just a wonderful, loving experience. Any more questions?
Yes, we've got kind of a big one, which is in 3 parts. Where does the IKYA tradition come from? Mm-hmm. And then what is the origin of this work? And I think maybe the Pandora's box is, what actually is the IKYA consciousness?
Right. Now, a tradition is focused on kind of practices and an approach to spiritual awakening. And the starting point has to be that you understand that reality is not just this. There are infinite dimensions, universes, and places. And there are also traditions that the easy way to explain it is when you figure things out in a certain way and your approach to awakening contains certain things, at some point you will gravitate towards others who have figured out the same thing. So since these teachings and these practices are based on principles, not belief, it's basically the physics of how things work and how we then can use that as a foundation to also peel away our own illusions and our own spiritual immaturity. At some point, one will begin to connect with others doing the same thing. So this tradition is far older than this universe because it's, in a way, because it's not a tradition, and yet it is. Because a lot of individuals all over, wherever life is, they will figure out how to do this when they peel away everything else. What you're left with is what we may refer to as spiritual principles. It's basically, when you look at human existence, when you peel away everything, you're left with physics, right? And it's the same thing in a spiritual way. So when individuals move in that direction, at some point that will become something. And throughout time. And remember that this universe is just a very small bubble. There are infinite bubbles. They come and go. But there will be a lot of beings everywhere who kind of figure out how to do this. And over time, one begins to work together. And that's the tradition. So that's in a way where it's coming from, and this is what it is. This is also why, when you move into this work and this tradition, over time, you will also awaken to the assistance of many spiritual beings, not limited to this planet or even this universe, because this tradition is quite common. So it exists many places, and there are a lot of beings that can be of assistance. Because it's really, again, when you peel away everything, this is what you got left. And then you try to practice that and figure out, what is that? How can we use that as a template to peel away and fulfill the awakening? So on this planet, it's not easy to say, well, it comes from there, because it really doesn't. You can say the same thing. Where does math come from? It doesn't come from anywhere. Where does physics come from? When you talk about physics, ask what is actually happening. It doesn't come from anywhere. It's just a fact. Right? All true spiritual work will at some point become the same. Right? At some point it will become the same. And you can see that also on this planet. Now, when people are dedicated to their religion for real, when they have an open heart, a dedicated heart, and they really try to practice what they study in their religion, at some point they will move past it, but they may still be in it. You can find that in Christianity or whatever. The same thing with spiritual traditions and spiritual paths. At some point, when you become more advanced and you gather them all in one room, they will agree on everything. Everything. They may have different words, but they know that words have no meaning. They understand that it is that process of dedication and awakening, and service. It's not about where you're coming from. It is one path. And this is what we're talking about. So in true spiritual work, it never comes from anywhere. Then you can point back to certain people and lineage, but it's not really important. I think that all of the universes, there are infinite amounts of beings studying life and reality this way. And this work is connected to that, which many students are actively experiencing. And it's just that. So think of it's very simple. All of the universes, just like math, no matter where you go in the universe, when a life form discovers math, it will be the same. Because math is math. No matter what dimension, mathematics will be the same. So at some point, all kind of spiritual work will become the same. And this is why also in this tradition, we encourage people to listen to anyone. And it can also be fascinating, and I often do this, reference different religions and different paths, and also sometimes different teachers, because truth is to be found everywhere. And sometimes a teacher in a tradition may have had a really good day, and we're able to kind of nail something. Well, then he did that. That's valuable. So it's also when your starting point is love, when your starting point is truth, you will begin to recognize it where it is. And you don't care about the packaging, you don't care about the culture, you begin to recognize it for what it is. Right? This is again why you can't follow, you can't limit yourself. But this is what we're also offering in these teachings, is that approach, the ability to also recognize something when it actually is true, when it represents the divine and when it represents what will make you heal and grow. Any other questions?
Yes, we've got one in the audience. Perfect.
And what is the destination of this path?
There is no destination. Because that's back to the linear thinking. There's a starting point and an end point. There is no end point because in the universe, in existence, there is no end point. This, humans, and when you look at many spiritual paths, they have kind of this way of thinking. Religions have this way of thinking because it's part of the human survival mind that we like from point A to B, right? And then good things happen. We like to see results. Just like we go out and fish and then we get fish and we can feed the family, so there. And the linear way of thinking is very human. And then for people to understand spirituality and everything, like one creates these models of point A to B. Existence does not contain time or space. It simply is. So it cannot be an end point. It is gradually waking up to what is and allow to be what and who you truly are. And that never ends. It never ends. So when you remove the kind of linear model, it's simply that. And let's say for kind of like linear purposes to help the brain, if you were to get to an endpoint where understood everything, every time a new experience happens, it will change everything and then you have to learn it again. Which is why it's so exciting. It's not about getting done. It's about becoming better at learning. And it becomes more interesting, more fun, more fascinating. You'll be more interested in what you haven't learned yet than what you have learned. It's understanding that for each step, the universe will open even more. And that will never stop. And that is something that is wonderful and beautiful. So over time, when we'll leave behind the human kind of linear way of thinking, because think of survival as also competition. So you need to okay, I'm at the top of the mountain now, and in the universe, that means nothing. Wherever you think you are, well, that's really just your subjective perspective. If you are already in the heart of God, and the rest is what you tell yourself, and exploring that and becoming it, it never stops. And at the same time, it never begins. Because it's who you are and what the only thing that is happening. And because it's beyond time and space, it's really not happening at all. But again, it's impossible to explain this, and yet it's the most natural thing ever. So, if we more talk about what this path and this tradition has to offer is a complete kind of realistic approach to spiritual awakening. It's extremely direct. No fluff, no illusions, no storytelling. But based on what works and practices that you can test out, information you can test out, and that you can verify, and that you can learn how to verify. You become more skilled, more competent. And one can say, well, if it's all about surrender, do I need to know? Yeah, because it's surrender, and then what? It's not the end. Then you have to live from surrender. You have to create from surrender. Then you have to be in service from surrender. And if you think, well, God will just tell me what to do. No, it's someone telling you what to do. You are supposed to know what to do. Otherwise, someone will have to manage you. It's becoming aware and skilled in absolutely every possible level of existence at the same time and being able to then express and carry out the divine will. It takes skill. So I train you. So with each level of consciousness you reach, I will train you how to be in service from that point, how to become a vehicle for the divine from that point. And then you move to the next one. Right? But it's a tradition is simply about the practices and learning and becoming fully aware and fully skilled. I said, with no dogma, no belief, and you becoming fully kind of sentient in your own kind of explorations. So you can peel away illusions more quickly and also gravitate towards what is more quickly if that's what you want. So it's that. But also again with a sense of humor and playfulness and not taking it too seriously. Spiritual studies are not something else than life, because it's the only thing that ever happens. It's just that humans, for some reason, believe that something else is going on, right? So it's the most natural thing ever. And it's just like learning also in our human form to fully embrace that kind of like spiritual awakening and the full expansion of consciousness, and making it work as it also in real life. And that balance between the inner and outer is, I think, one of the most kind of recognizable differences in how much is emphasized and how one can learn to use the outer and the inner worlds as the same platform, because that will accelerate and amplify one's studies and also will make each individual understand for real. Because it's not a mindless surrender. It's a competent surrender. Anyone else?
We have a question about the mantra course. Both, like, how does IKYA Crystal compare and contrast with the mantra course, and how do they work together?
Well, the studies you do with crystals are mostly about spiritual teachings and information. So that's where you get the main bulk of your studies. And working with mantras are about how you can tune yourself, right? Each mantra will assist you in tuning and becoming. So you may study and then expand and learn, and whatever we want to call it. So the mantra course is more about the process of you becoming a kind of sharper tool. And then you have the crystal course, if we want to call it that, which is more about the main bulk of the education. Some people do just one of them, and that's completely doable. But you get this kind of like really kind of full study experience if you do both. But it's also what you're drawn to. But working with mantras are just wonderful. And the mantras we work with in this tradition are something else. Because many people, and the students in the mantra courses will also tell you that even if they've been working with mantras their entire life, this is a whole different level. Most of them belong to this tradition, meaning that they work differently and can also carry with them spaces from other kind of places, dimensions, types of consciousness that are a little unusual for the human mind. which makes it a lot more interesting. Because many of the mantras, like from this planet, kind of belong to the kind of human journey and the human evolution and the human way of thinking and believing. And the mantras that we work with are kind of like breaking that up and assisting you to move into different positions and explore yourself as an instrument and exploring your own flow in different ways. So anyone on a spiritual path will say the mantras are very important tools and very powerful tools, and also fun to work with because you can feel that your inner structure may change. So it's like tuning the instrument, right? And then the crystal course is more about what to play.
Yes. So you've made an interesting point about words tonight. And we often get, I get this a lot, a question about a lot of work. You've talked about it being a lot of work to study with you tonight. And maybe more than ever now in the human culture, we kind of have an allergy to the idea of work at all. And it's kind of this question then about if it's a lot of work to study with you and if it's a lot of work to study truth, how do we balance that with our normal life? And everything is busy, there's so many demands. Like,
right.
Can you talk a little bit about that whole landscape
Right.
and how we do it together?
In this tradition, we will rearrange your life. We will refurnish it. We will move it around like a set on stage. So your whole life will become the study. That's the benefit. It will make it easier. So it's not like your spiritual study will be separate from your life. It will be played out in your life. So whatever you do, wherever you do it, all interactions, whatever plays out in your life will be the studies. And the emphasis on life as a spiritual practice, understanding that your existence is a spiritual practice. When we think of a spiritual practice, is interacting with the divine past manifestation, past our beliefs and everything, and trying to figure out how do I peel away my illusions and move kind of closer to what is. Your life will be that, but we will rearrange things and you will notice. And that's the kind of greatest benefit in this tradition, is that this is how we do it. So many students experience almost like they walk around in their own specially designed video game that is only for them, because they can see how things manifest and how things play out with them in the receiving end, getting the benefit of what they're studying being more clarified and the mirrors becoming clear. So it is also then trying to be aware and be present to wherever you are, to whatever you're doing, because that is part of the practice. So it's not like trying to get your stuff done or getting your life in order so you can study spirituality. No, it's the opposite. It's having your spiritual intention and dedication as a starting point, and then study, and then discover even more how this is a divine conversation. And as I said, it's a lot of work, but it's really less work than your suffering. It's when we are out of tune, when we are in all of our kind of human stuff, that is exhausting. All the noise, all the pain, all the suffering, everything that doesn't make sense, all of it, and that is human life. So when you dedicate yourself to spiritual studies in this work, over time that will harmonize and you will feel that, oh, right, it's a lot of work, but it's actually less. But because we include both the inner and the outer, all manifestations and everything as part of your study, it makes sense. No matter where you turn, that's part of your study. When you close your eyes, that's your study. Other people, that's your study. Like, everything is part of it. And it becomes more and more interesting, because part of the training is to be constantly present, be constantly aware. the human doesn't want to. Like, the human goal is to do nothing, to fall asleep. Right? So it takes practices to move past that, to choose to be awake. But your life will also remind you and assist you. And all students experience that they become more awake gradually, because things will happen in your life that will assist you in becoming more present and more aware and more awake. And it just becomes this wonderful adventure every moment. Any more questions?
Got one more online.
Okay.
So we work with awakening. Is it possible to be awake somewhere down the line where I would expect to be one with life?
If you ask, like, in these studies, will you get there? Yes, you will. It's a natural step of your spiritual unfoldment that at some point you experience everything as one. And it's a sign that you are beginning to wake up. It's when the outer and the inner and everything, and you see it, you see past the rendering, you see past manifestation, you see past all of it, and you begin to see the fabric of life, you begin to see oneness behind it, and you as part of it. Completely natural, and you can't unsee it. So that is to be expected, and that will happen if you invest the amount of work it takes. But yes, awakening is the most natural thing, just like for a seed. It's completely natural to become a plant, a flower, or a tree. It's completely natural. But the seed will just lay dormant until it's planted, right? When it's found, seeds are like several thousand years old. And then they plant them, and woo, they sprout. So it's the same thing with awakening. It happens when it happens. And as a seed laying on a table, it may seem completely impossible because it's not you. The seed cannot decide to sprout. It happens when it's planted. When it's planted in soil with water and the right amount of sunlight, it will happen. And what the seed thinks about it is irrelevant because it's not up to the seed. And so it is with you. You cannot decide. It's placing yourself in reality. And stop resisting what is. Opening yourself up more. And then it will begin to happen. Which is why surrender is such an important part, because that's basically the seed surrendering to nature, letting it happen. When you wake up, it's not because of you, it's because of nature. I often talk about, when you think about a seed, this big, right? It can become a tree. Everything that becomes the tree does not come from the seed. It comes from the world around it. So your awakening is reality waking up in you. The you part is not what is growing. It's the divine. It's God waking up in you. And when you look at a magnificent big tree, none of that comes from the seed. The seed contains the code. How all nutrients, everything from nature, will be arranged and combined in such a way that the tree happens. It doesn't come from the seed. So you contain the code. But what you are and what will expand is the universe. It's God in you. And this is why it's so important. We all learn in all traditions and practices, do not stand in the way. The seed has to let it happen. And the growth is not because of you. It is because of God waking up in you. So over time, the ego gets balanced. In the beginning, we think, ooh, I'm all this, look at me. You know, at some point, we're done with that because it's irrelevant. I sometimes compare that to, you know, if you have a garden and you grow all sorts of things, and, ooh, look at me, I'm such a good gardener. Oh, look at all my beautiful things, much better than my neighbors. And then life will say, well, okay, then we will expand your garden because you're so good at this. And you say, look at me, ooh, this is so great. Like, look at my garden. And you win awards and prizes, and then it continues to grow. And at some point, it's a forest. And no matter how you look at it, it's not yours anymore. It's too big. It's very clear that this is nature, and now you're just a caretaker. I don't own, this is not, nature is doing what it wants, but you're still caring for it. So at a certain point in your evolution, that whole kind of ego thing that we often find in spiritual work in ourselves in the beginning, it will just, you know, because it's irrelevant. At some point, you will expand too much, and you'll get it. Right? So this is also why in this work, don't pretend you don't have an ego. It's not necessary, because, and it will dominate you until it doesn't. And it will sneak out in the most interesting ways, right? Whenever you think, no, my ego is saying, no. It will always find a way. But then again, just relax. At some point, your expansion, your garden, will get too big. And you will realize, this is not my garden anymore. And it will happen. It happens to all of you. It happens to all of us at some point. But until then, you may want to get awards for your wonderful garden, and that's okay if that's what motivates you, right? So don't suppress it. Don't pretend it's not there. Enjoy it for as long as you can, because at some point it will be gone, right? And that's fine. Look, each stage of awakening will represent different kind of experiences and a different understanding of who you are and what you are. And it's fine. So in this work, we emphasize be who you are with all your illusion, all your truth, and then we work from there. It's when we try for hierarchical reasons or competition, you know, to be someone we're not based on what we think people will perceive as spiritual, then we crash and burn. You know, so it's like in this work, you don't have to. Be you in every capacity, all levels, and just like, whew, and then we can heal. Then we can figure things out. But whatever you feel is difficult, whatever you feel is difficult kind of in you to deal with, at some point, your expansion will take care of it. Natural healing will take care of it. Sometimes trying to go indirectly and heal and work is a waste of time, because if you spent that time on awakening and expansion of consciousness, it would have healed. This is why I say, no matter what you want to achieve, no matter what your question is, the answer is raise your consciousness. Because when you do, you will heal. You will understand things differently. And things you felt were completely attached and there's no way out, all of a sudden, it's gone. So you'll learn this, but in the meantime, just be you. Don't be pretentious. There's no need. And I know many of you coming from other spiritual paths or whatever, you have experienced this so much. Is to try to learn from that. And be compassionate towards yourself and others, and don't gossip, don't criticize, you know. If you do it, not a big deal, but it's better if you try not to, and to love yourself and others exactly where they are and how they are, and understand that whenever someone raises their consciousness, when they figure it out, that will heal, right? So in this community, we try to really hold each other and love and respect and lift, because that is how it's done, right? right? And for you to feel that you don't have to pretend at all, right? Who you are already is exactly who you are supposed to be as a seed. Doesn't mean that you are a tree yet, but that we could work with, right? And that's the beauty. And also when you look at seeds on a table, you have no idea what they may become, right? But it's also that joy of knowing that inside each of us there's a unique plant. There's only one of us, each and every one of us in the universe. And we should all be curious about what's inside of us, but also what's inside of others. The higher you go in consciousness and service, the more this will fascinate you. This is why you're never done. There will always be a new tree. There will always be a new flower. There will always be new something that has not yet been brought into its fullness. And you want to be part of it because it's beautiful and it's because it's yet another aspect of God that has not been shown. And you can't wait. And this is why being in service takes over. And you've already gotten to the point where your garden is so big that you don't give a fuck about that anymore. It's simply about the fascination, enthusiasm about what life is. It's just a kind of very natural, loving evolution. But it takes work. Any more questions?
It seems like every single day the world's getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And I'd love to ask you to comment on why this teaching, why this consciousness has showed up now, and to say something about maybe why we need to intensify our studies given what's going on in the world right now.
Well, I think this is exactly why. I like incarnating in places where there are severe transformation, because it also means that there are a lot of openings, right? Look at humans today. They don't know what to believe or where to go. I like confusion, chaos, and depression, because especially that combination, because it means that humans doubt. The only right way to believe is to doubt. Because doubt is a belief, but it's more productive. Because it means that you're less attached. And you may be looking for something else, or, and this is often the beginning of the true spiritual connection. So, but as you're all aware of, the planet today and our culture is changing, because the current kind of format is coming to its end. And there is a kind of new level being incarnated over time. So it's very challenging, and it will become even more challenging. We're entering what we often refer to as the endarkenment, which simply that what humans are doing will intensify so that humans can see what they're doing. Because humans are not very good at that. But this is also what it needs, right? It's what humans need to also be able to find a kind of better path for the continuous evolution of the human civilization. So, but it will be tough. And since this civilization, all it does is harmful, right? Everything it does is harmful. And humans are doing its best to kill the planet, kill each other, kill all life, poison themselves, poison others. Like it's just like it's endless. And that means that most people are falling asleep. Life is difficult and they don't have the tools. And then humans are drawn to self-medication. Self-medication may be anything that can numb the pain. And people today, they're so full of noise, right? Their emotions are noisy, their thoughts are noisy. Their actions are noisy. Everything is noisy in their life, outside and in, and they don't know what to do. So they pop pills and eat shit and watch, mind-numbing entertainment. And people like seeing dumb people because then they feel smarter. It's you know, it's just like, it's not a healthy place for the civilization right now. And the thing is, you know, I've talked to many people and many students over the last year especially, where they say, well, I'm beginning to believe that there is something wrong with me because it feels like I have no emotions, like I have no feelings. It's just like, you know, I can look at other people and they feel a lot, apparently, and they have a lot of emotions and things going on. It's like, and I look at them and nothing. And I say, well, it's because you don't have the noise anymore. A healthy human can have one emotion and one thought, and they can hold it, and they can actually be the same. That is not normal right now. People have 12 different thoughts at the same time, pulling different directions, and they have feelings and emotions all over the place, and they couldn't control it. And that level of noise creates a lot of suffering, but it's not normal. It's not healthy. So when you do like growth work and you work on yourself, you will begin to feel the absence of feelings. You will think the absence of thoughts. And you will then begin to realize, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. I can have calm feelings and emotions that are actually uplifting, not just a lot of reactions going on inside of me, looping, telling myself negative things. I can decide what to feel. I can decide what emotions to have. I can decide what thoughts I want to be in, and I will lift myself. But it's so uncommon right now that many students believe that there's something wrong with me because people are all over the place now. But this is, you know, the boiling frog type of thing, right? Our civilization is moving in a direction and it's getting worse and worse. And people are just like on that kind of train, losing themselves, suffering more, becoming more confused, and they don't know what to do with it, right? And many people are then also experiencing that their religions and maybe practices are not really doing it. So they're running from one thing to another because they're in so much pain and they're just trying to find the right way to numb themselves. So they try this thing and that teaching, that teacher, that book, but the pain doesn't go away. Right? So the point of introducing this work for real is to offer a tradition where you can heal for real, where you can get results, where your awakening will be true. It's not the only path, it's not the only way, because there is no such thing. But it offers a system and a community and a kind of place where you will get results, where you will heal irreversibly, where you will expand your consciousness irreversibly, where you will move into divine service and you will understand what you're doing. And it's real. And it's true. And it's more important than ever. And it's more important than ever that people who identify as spiritual students, that you all kind of step up and do it for real, not just because of you, but because of the planet. Right? If we want to be in service, we have to learn what that actually means. It's not about your wish to be in service, you need to be competent. To carry out the divine will, you need to be in alignment with it. And at least this is a greenhouse. We'll be nurtured, we will grow faster. where your efforts will bring you results spiritually, where then in turn you can be of service in the world and carry light and assist and heal, and for people to be touched because it's needed. So in this tradition, it doesn't stop with you. A big part of the practice is being a presence in the world that higher consciousness, the divine God, whatever you want to call it, can utilize. And that's a big part of the studies as well. So yes, when we look at the planet, this culture, we can say there's room for improvement. But then the planet will also need tuning forks. People have done so much work that they carry the light, and they carry that kind of purity so that they are a tuning fork in and of themselves, and then will affect everyone they meet, regardless of saying something or doing something. Simply their presence will be instructional. And that is something that will gradually also happen with you. Anyone else? Good. Now, so, joining this work is all about you and your spiritual potential. And we respect your autonomy and integrity. And it's for you to learn how to respect it too. Your uniqueness, you as a divine spark, a divine seed, and how you may also take part in facilitating planting yourself, opening yourself up and becoming everything that you truly are. And then living as that on all levels. And then experiencing that with others. Because growing up spiritually can be a lonely process. We all know this. When we dedicate ourselves to true spiritual awakening, we feel it's what I am and the world. And then we still connect, and we can feel that oneness and connectedness, but as a person, it can feel like, I'm just in me. And the value of having a community and working together with others, and also being mirrored by people who actually understand what you're doing. Because as you become more advanced spiritually, it's more difficult to talk about it. Because again, we have words, but we mean something different with the words now than we used to. So it's wonderful to then be able to talk with people who actually understand what you're saying. And you can be in that togetherness and exchange and love, and then also kind of bring that to others. So that's basically what we're inviting you into, if you want to. Again, this is not the only way to do anything, but it's one way. And there is a path for every level of consciousness and every level of evolution. Right? Wherever you are, well, that's your path, and it's for you to see if what we're offering resonates with that, because you have to be loyal to what is true in you. You're not finding an outer path, you're finding the inner one, reflected. Right? And if this may be a greenhouse and basically an amplifier and a chamber of mirrors that can make you realize the path within and the true awakening, then you will feel that something is resonating. And it's that. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. But if your dedication to your awakening is true and real, this may be the most direct tradition and path that you have met so far. So if you feel ready to wake up for real, I welcome you to this work. And if you're not sure yet, I also welcome you to this work. You know, this is for everyone, if you want to be part of it. Because you start where you start. And your intention and your dedication to truth will grow. Your dedication to service will grow. Your realization of what is will grow. And that is what it's all about. So, but I am here, I'm available. This work is available. So just listen if it resonates in you, because that is a starting point. If it doesn't, that's perfectly fine. But if you feel that this work may be for you, you're more than welcome to join this work and also join the effort in co-creating a living spiritual tradition on this planet. Now, Andy and Nora, if you can come up, if there is any more information.
Yep.
Yep.
But first, would you like to stay, or
Yeah.
would you, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So, Nora, if you want to just.
Okay.
No, well, wherever you want to. Mm-hmm.
I'll just sit on the edge. All right. Yeah. Are you unmuted? Yeah, there we go.
I'm unmuted. Yeah.
So, how would you like to conclude tonight?
This momentum. Yeah. We build momentum tonight by gathering and listening to the heart and getting out of the brain and having contact to what's real inside. It's such a momentum. And to bring the effort to come here or online is also momentum, and to keep that sacred as you leave here. That's what I want to take. And for the practical, yeah.
Well, but I want to touch that you use the word contact, because we come up here and we're just two contacts in this community, but truly it's a community where each and every one of us is a contact for each other. And thereby we do become part of the mesh of life, you know, and that's part of the practice. That is how we do it. So the practical stuff, guys, the information is on the website, or you can send an email, or better yet, we're going to stay, you know, you've got lots of experienced students here tonight at the center and online, and we'll continue to be here to answer your questions, both online and here at the center. But, you know, it's key things like it's 11 stones and crystals, it's 22 teachings, it's 11 study gatherings, and it's an untold number of moments where you will find yourself expanding, growing, you know, growing roots, deepening your connection with others, with yourself.
It's a lifestyle. It doesn't take long before it becomes a lifestyle. It becomes the daily life where we find joy and frustration, but it's daily life. Yeah.
And I think, again, for me, the beauty of this study is, first of all, recognizing truly, maybe for the first time, that you are walking a unique path that is only yours, and yet we're all doing it together. So there's nothing to be afraid of in recognizing the belonging of being next to each other with no fear anymore of copying or following or anything, because we all have to figure it out. Yeah.
And to get the crystals and have the box. The first day we meet again, there's so many moments where we build life history and also competence, because we know nothing about these new crystals. And then we meet and we study, we get better at it, we get practices, meditational practices, mantra singing together or alone. We're building competence, and that just feels good for the person, but on the inner, it makes like everything changes. And the practical can also fuck up how we leave the room tonight. So I really want to emphasize on everything is is there, and you are all nurtured for. It's like the seed, so it will all gravitate towards you. The economy, the information, how to do things, the study groups, the dates, everything. There's a time for everything. But this is connecting to something new.
Life will always support true awakening, but only true awakening. So people experience that when they are dedicated and then move into that kind of point of dedication in themselves, and it's true, life will start to support them. Because life is about that continuous awakening in all life, and it never stops. And then your awakening is part of the everlasting, creation and recreation of the universes. Because it's the expression of what is. And only awakening in you is what is. So life will support that. Because it's not about you anymore. And many experience that kind of resources and situation will begin to gravitate towards them, and they will gravitate towards what's necessary to nurture that awakening, because it's now life. Just like when the seed opens, you have the capacity then to let nature work in you, and you let it. And then you become that plant. Life will support it. Just like the moment the seed is planted, life will support it, but not until it has been planted. So that is what will happen. And that is a completely natural process, but this is a greenhouse. So whatever happens in the world, in these practices, in this teaching, this happens. I'll also say I will stay on for a little bit after this, so if you're completely new to the teachings and you have any more questions or something you'd like to talk about, I will still be here for a little while, but only if you're new to these teachings.
Just wanted to say thank you for such a potent reminder that each of us has to walk our own path, but it's actually physically impossible to do it alone. So it's nice to do it in a place that feels like home. Okay, guys, well, the course officially begins on the 24th of September. Remember, with IKYA's studies, the moment you sign up is the moment the study opens to you, vibrationally on the inner, in the spirit, in the vertical. So if you're, waiting for some magic moment, that moment would be as soon as you press the button and do what you need to do.
Yes, the inner work and the preparation begins from the moment you manifest that dedication. So we always advise people to sign up as early as they can, because it begins, but not before, right? So yes, if you want to join, it's smart of you to sign up as soon as you can, because you will get more time to prepare and to be adjusted. And the whole kind of inner process begins, and the rearranging of your life will begin.
Okay, so for those of us here at the center, we've got lots of people here. We'll stay as long as you'd like. We'll mingle. We've got drinks and snacks. For those on Zoom, we have lovely students to also be with you and to continue answering questions.
But no snacks.
But no snacks, unless you've got them. And then everybody on YouTube Live, thank you so much for joining us. And this whole evening has been recorded and will be available on that same YouTube Live link that we sent out. So, you can watch it as many times as you want. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Mm-hmm.